Hey everybody, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connerton, and to my right, with the green tie, the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Yeah, baby.
Wasn't St. Patrick's Day like last week or the week before or something?
Yeah, I'm just catching up.
Yeah, good for you.
I get my green pin.
Oh.
Wait, it's upside down. There we go. Green pin.
Yes, good. You're just full of green.
I'm full of green.
Wow.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right.
Anyway, hi, Matt.
Oh, hi. Yes.
Ann Cartwright was in the legislature with me in 2011 and 12.
Okay.
So you were there during the Rowdy O'Brien years.
Yes.
And
I heard he's the Irish speaker.
The Irish speaker, Willie O'Brien. So, now you've been involved in. Oh, well, you're gonna have to. I've already forgotten everybody's names. You guys have to introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name's Chris Reitman. I'm a selectman for the town of Alstead.
Okay.
My name is Jim McConnell, and I'm a state representative right now from Cheshire
you are?
12.
Jeez, I should have known that. Right? I should have.
Yeah.
You kind of should have, yeah.
To tell you the truth, I didn't know your name either. I
good.
do have a great
Well,
great memory for faces, however, so I have seen you before.
I used to, but now my eyes stink, so I can't even recognize somebody across the hall.
Well, there you go.
Because I used to always have, I always used to at least be able to say, oh yeah, I know them, and then it'd take a while to try to figure out where, and then names. No, I never got names. I never got that far.
I'm terrible with remembering the names. I remember the faces, but the names, takes me a while. I'll remember them 2 hours later, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, if you meet a lot of people too, then after a
Yes.
while.
And in the legislature, there's 400 of us, so
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
really, really tough.
I can
Right.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know it's horrible. There was a person died at church. Okay, my wife. I don't remember the lady's name. Anyway, so my wife goes, "Oh, Cindy died." Yeah. So, Cindy. Okay. What's your point? You were in the choir with her for 4 years. I was. Yes, Gary. You.
You did remember you were in the choir.
Yes, I
Okay,
did. I think
well.
that's a lot, right?
Take your wins where you can get them.
Exactly.
It is interesting that someone told you someone died and your first reaction is, yeah, so. Whether you knew them or not, that's kind of.
Well, it's like, to me, it was like she picked out a name out of the obituary,
Right.
and it said,
yeah.
Joe Schmo dies. Okay.
Yeah, well.
It happens,
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so I saw, was it just you up at the State House the other day? And
No, in fact, all of these people.
they
there.
were all three up there. Okay.
Yes, they were.
And a number of other speakers.
A number of
Yes.
other speakers. We saw my buddy Bob Gaida.
Yes.
Causing trouble. Representative Gaida and I were freshmen together in 2011, 2001 and 2. And he was fun because he sat right in front of me. And we would pick on each other pretty much all day long. We were just freshman rebels, so it was quite entertaining.
First
And-
politician I ever interviewed was Bob Gaida.
Really?
Yep.
How so?
He probably doesn't even remember. Yeah,
You
this
probably
was,
tried to forget.
This was like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah,
Really? For what?
just for IPM Nation. I was just doing some political interviews, and
Oh, no way.
we would just post them on the website. But he was the first
Oh,
one.
he was running for Congress.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's
I don't remember how I convinced him to do it, but he was like, okay.
no, he's a good guy. He's a
He'll
straight
do
shooter.
Yeah, he is. He'll do it.
He's still worried because the FBI. You remember our buddy Jerry? Jerry's been on the show a few times.
Yeah.
Yep.
And after Jerry got arrested, Bob's nervous because he was actually out there.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't know that until the other day.
Oh, wow.
He was out there for a week.
He was out there for a week.
No
right?
kidding. Huh.
And
Interesting.
then the funny thing is, not funny, but when Jerry was out there, I listened to some of the interviews online and stuff, and they kept referring to somebody that was with Jerry named Jack. And I always kept it on the down low because I had it figured out, but I didn't want to say it because I knew that there's a lot of, and I always thought it was Jack Kimball.
No, I don't.
It
believe
wasn't.
No.
It was Jack something else. I don't know that guy. Or if I do, it was more than 20 seconds ago, so I've forgotten him. But for the longest time, then I found out the other day that Bob was there when you guys were outside doing your
The State House
presentation
for the rally, yes.
for the rally, and then I found that it wasn't Jack Kimball that was out there. It was some other guy named Jack. So, but yeah, that's pretty horrible. They just moved Jerry to New York.
Oh,
He's in New York right now, some state prison, I think.
no kidding.
Yeah, it's not good.
'Cause I know there was worry
No,
they
it
were going to
isn't good.
put him in Nevada.
No, I think they're trying to rattle his cage.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Russians always get confessions out of people. Everybody's guilty. Anyway, so we're here to talk about the reason Bob Gaida and Jerry DeLimas were out west was because the abuses of the federal government on people's private property.
That
And
is true.
and it just keeps getting worse and worse.
And it has come to New Hampshire.
And you know the latest one where now I've forgotten who got arrested for burning. It was the father and son that were arrested for burning
Hammonds.
the Hammonds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it turns out there's witnesses that the fire initially. You remember they started back burning to try to protect their farm,
Yeah.
Yep.
and they had told everybody this is what we're doing,
Yeah.
and it's pretty standard procedure if there's a fire
They
to
had
do this.
gotten the permits and all
They had
of
gotten the
that.
permits and everything else. But turns out it was somebody from the federal government that started the fires that they were trying to protect themselves from.
Oh,
Interesting.
yes.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Well, that would be like what happened in South Dakota, where they decided, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service decided to do a prescribed burn.
Right.
And it was in drought conditions, and
The
the
perfect
weather,
time. You can get a nice fire going that way.
drought conditions, and the weather people were saying, do not burn because it's going to be windy and it's going to be very hot, and the drought, it could easily get out of control. So the ranchers in the area told the Fish and Wildlife Service they shouldn't burn. But they went and started the fire, and it was supposed to burn 130 acres. Guess how much it burned?
Oh, out there, gosh, they got, I don't know.
11,000 acres, all the ranchers' hay fields and hay bales, and the calves were
Wow.
calving, and they were trying to save their cattle from this fire. And they had meetings afterwards and asked and said, well, are you going to make restitution for all the damage you've done to our property? And U.S. Fish and Wildlife apologized and said they were sure that they would take care of it. Well, it's 3 years later. They have not been given any compensation for their losses. And the parent of U.S. Fish and Wildlife is Department of Agriculture, Vilsack.
Right.
And they have come out with a statement that it wasn't, the government has no liability and they do not intend to reimburse them.
Yeah, that's actually is very likely legally the case. There's a lot of
The federal government shouldn't be above the law.
Right, but they
I ge-
possess
I-
limited immunities and things
there is
like
a
that.
lot of limited immunity. I'll give you an example, and I didn't know this. We had a bill in the Judiciary Committee, and what was it? It was about liability of the towns, and the and if you go back into the history of it, the town itself was never liable for anything. The reason is 500 people get together, they form a town, they all get together and build the town hall, and Joe is a part-time cop and Fred's the fireman, and you know these are like part-time people trying to keep this town rolling, and the fire truck screws up or something like that and does damage to your property. Who are they suing? They're suing their neighbors.
themselves.
Okay, so you're just suing yourself. So it's been long-standing law for a long time, up until the 70s, where the towns weren't liable when they messed up. It's only now that there's so much insurance, which is another whole bucket of worms there, that we actually started having liability insurance and things like that, and you know, people could sue for their kid getting hurt on the playground.
Well, it's
and-
definitely double standards. You look at the Animas River in Colorado,
Right.
where the EPA went in and released all that hazardous
Oh, yeah.
water, that had arsenic and all, and they polluted the entire river. It flowed downstream, and there is no repercussions.
No.
Right.
Whereas if it was an average citizen,
Oh
they'd be
gosh.
in
Be
prison.
in prison.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Forget
So
lawsuits.
you can't have a double standard like that.
I get it. I'm just saying where, if you look at the history of it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as bizarre as you might think.
And it's not just liability, it's accountability.
Accountability
The
is-
federal government doesn't have any accountability
None.
whatsoever. So the Animas River is a great example. Who got fired over that?
Nobody.
No one.
Nobody. Who's going to get fired?
Who,
Nobody.
who's going to get?
And the damage they did to the environment was horrific.
And how they will play it is they will end up with more funding. That's the beauty of it. They made a big mistake. They've got all this stuff to clean up, so we're going to need additional funds.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we are going to pay for their mistakes, and we
Right.
continue to pay for their mistakes.
Anyway, so we're going to run out of time
Right,
before we
we
get
wanna
involved.
cover
So we're
what's
talking
happening.
about some of these land rights. So what's going on in New Hampshire right now? I understand there's some people who are fighting for their land now, even in New Hampshire.
Well, my husband and I own a tree farm in Alstead, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And back in September, we received a postcard from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that we were in the acquisition area for the Silvio Conte, the expansion of the Silvio Conte Wildlife Refuge.
Okay.
And the Silvio Conte Wildlife Refuge is the entire watershed of the Connecticut River, which in New Hampshire is over 1.9 million acres of land.
Now, are you talking about? Because you sent me, and I didn't forward you that map. I put it on Facebook though, or a representation of it.
Yeah.
Because everything she sent me was in PDF.
Right.
That's the
Yeah,
map.
I don't-
I don't know if they can see it on the
He might be able
camera.
to zoom in. I don't know what he's.
That's a lot of land.
That is a lot of land. That's for people who can't see that at home. Fundamentally, that is the Connecticut River, and I don't know how many miles either side of that, all the way down from all the way up in Burlington, Canada, all the way down to
The ocean.
down to the ocean in Connecticut, and so that's a lot of towns. And so-
93 towns.
93 towns. They're trying to.
93 towns.
Now, this is what I didn't understand, because I read some of the stuff you sent. I didn't understand. Okay, so now you're part of that
We're in the focus
plan.
area
You're in the focus area.
for this expansion of the Silvio Conte.
Okay, so now this is what I'm. Are they saying? Are they taking this area and saying we don't want more people building on it, or are they saying we're taking your land? Get
It's
out.
not, they tell us in their literature and at the meetings that were held that they have the right of eminent domain, but that they don't use it.
Well, they try not to use it, but they do have it.
Yes. And they want to acquire from willing sellers. However, as in the cases out west, when you're not a willing seller, things can get dicey over time after a lot of people have already sold.
So it's kind of we're asking you nicely, but comply or else.
In the end, it appears that way if you look at the west.
Yeah.
If you look out west, that's what it appears to be.
Well, we've also run into problems here in New Hampshire where
Right.
up in the Imboga and some of these other areas, they have taken large parcels of property on. If you own property that
That's the
they
umbigo.
surround, you
Right
may
here.
find that, as some
Right here
people
in New
testified
Hampshire.
before the Resources Recreation Development Committee that I sit on in the House, that the only way they can get to their property is by boat.
Yeah.
They
And,
closed the roads. They've done that out west too.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show in the other room. You were saying, was it Utah? Where they do
Yes.
that, where they just make it impossible for you to get to your property?
Utah has sued the federal government a couple of times.
Yeah.
They're in the process again, I've heard, of suing the federal government.
Yeah.
Because they've just closed more roads, and people live on those roads, or towns might be on their roads.
Yeah.
Are those federal roads?
The land,
state
they own the
roads.
majority of the land, so then they close the roads, saying that they own the roads.
It's incredible. It's like there's strong arm tactics, and then there's, I don't even know what you would call that. We're just going to make it impossible for you to even get to your home.
Well, you
That's
know,
incredible.
already up in northern New Hampshire, there's a road that goes through the Fish and Wildlife land, and they were supposed to take care of it. Well, they told the town or the county, I don't know, remember which. Larry Rappaport was a rep, was telling me this story, that they needed the road fixed for the townspeople to use. It was getting too bad, and they said no, they couldn't afford to fix it. It would be $800,000. So they knew they had to do something, so they raised the money locally, and it cost them $79,000 to fix the road.
Yeah.
But they had to do it. The Fish and Wildlife never kept up the road.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how this stuff comes about, too. So every fish and wildlife refuge across the country, every 15 years goes through a process which is called a Comprehensive Conservation Plan, a CCP. And as a result of that plan, they will come in and they will identify any endangered species. They will identify what the flora and
Plants,
fauna looks like,
yes.
and if there's anything endangered there. And then they will come up with a plan to preserve all these things and to ensure that they will be here for generations to come, which all sounds very good. But basically, we're not talking about new regulation. We're not talking about Congress and the people coming down and saying, we would like this land better taken care of. This all exists within a bureaucracy. And basically, it is a way.
Is this all, the people you're dealing with now, is that all BLM? Bureau of Land
No.
Management?
No, Fish and Wildlife Service.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, so they're in cahoots, basically. It's same,
It's the
different
same,
department, same thing.
same modus operandi for any of them. They have that regulatory agency that they can use to boost their own power.
And they're under agriculture?
Well,
that
U.S. Fish and Wildlife is under agriculture.
Okay.
BLM is under Interior.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I think so.
I think that's right.
Yeah, but you have this cycle where I can come up with all kinds of reasons why I need more funding and why I need to acquire more land, and unless towns fight it,
However,
that's going to be what happens.
in a number of cases, it's been shown that the wildlife was doing better with the out west with the ranchers, because the fields, them maintaining the fields for food and all.
Yeah.
Right.
The wildlife, the birds they were concerned about on the Hammond property, from what I read,
I thought it was turtles or something.
no,
stupid
that
thing.
was the Bundys
Oh, I
in
can't keep
Nevada.
track of-
And also the turtles did better. They're now
Right.
killing a number of the turtles, the government is. But they were doing better with the animals on the property, from what I've heard about the turtles also.
Okay.
It's like around here. You
Right.
see the turkeys, and you see someone who has a dairy farm. Guess where the turkeys are? They're at the dairy farm.
Right.
Because
Right.
there's good food pickings there.
Right,
Right.
right.
So the wildlife does better with these type of operations. Plus, no one's talking about where our food comes from. And if the ranchers, the private citizen rancher, can no longer grow the beef cattle or whatever else they're growing, guess who has the monopoly on that?
Right. Well, I think it's
Corporate.
I think it's actually quite a bit more sinister than that. I believe it's trying to, they're deliberately trying to reduce the quantity of food that's grown in the United States, so we're completely dependent on foreign countries.
Could be. I have no
complete
idea
dependency
that.
thing, because that
Yeah.
way they have complete control. It's the reason they want our guns is not because they don't want little children in Chicago shot, because they don't care.
Well,
'Cause
they
if
don't allow
cared ab-
guns in Chicago.
I realize that, but
Yeah, there can't be a gun problem there.
right. If that was what they really cared about, there are solutions to that. But they don't care about that, but they use that as an excuse for gun control, because what they really care about is absolute power. And if
here
they
we
I
can
have
control
to
the
agree with
food,
you about the absolute power.
and if they control the food, they have absolute power.
Absolutely.
And the water.
And even more so,
Yeah,
what
With
about
this, the Connecticut River, right? They're going to
Exactly.
control that.
Yep.
Yeah.
what about if they control all the water?
Yeah.
That's even more important.
Yep. And out west, that's
That's
that is a
crucial.
linchpin.
It's your life's blood.
That's what they've been doing. I had read about them years ago, going around and shutting off watering holes for the ranchers. And of course, out there, water is not plentiful.
No.
So it meant their livelihood was going to be destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at what they're doing in A Dead Harvest. It's a movie up on the internet in California, because they've shut off the water to the bread basket for all of the country in the wintertime. It's where all our produce and everything is grown.
Yeah.
And there's a great movie all about it on the internet called Dead Harvest.
Here's not directly relevant to that, but the city of Santa Barbara spent I don't know how many millions of dollars to get a salinization plant built
For water.
for
yeah.
water. Then there was a lot of rain for a few years, because that's what happens. They get a few years of rain, then there's a drought for like 10, and then they get a few years of rain. Well, as it got during those years of rain, they says, well, I guess we don't need this. So they sold the parts.
Oh.
They sold it off, and now they're in drought again, and they don't know what to do. Bureaucracy it's insane.
Well, and of course we care about the animals, but the animals are in synergy with the people.
Right.
The people, we need to work together,
Right.
not exclude the people, which is what U.S. Fish and
So
Wildlife
what
does.
now? They're trying to take your land now, and how close are you to the Connecticut River?
We are part of the watershed for the Ashuelit River, and they're going after the Ashuelit River in our area, the watershed of that. They're also Sprague Brook down in Richmond, which is on the Mass border.
Yeah.
That's New Hampshire, Richmond and Winchester.
Right.
Then up north in Hanover area, they're going after some other parcels. Then Canaan, New Hampshire. In fact, even before the approval came through, they bought a parcel in Canaan, New Hampshire, and the Canaan selectmen sent a letter to them because they were concerned about that property being bought out, 762 acres.
Wow.
Here's a good farce that they put up too, is that when they release this comprehensive conservation plan, there's always 4 options. This is how they do it.
Yes.
A is just too good to be true, so we know that one will never pass. B's a little bit more. C's sort of
What they want.
C's usually what they want, that's
Yes.
correct. And D is such a horrendous plan that no one would ever possibly support it.
Wild.
So they get
Oh, wild.
which one they want that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But C involves adding, 197,000 acres to a 37,000.
Right now, in
acre
this
parcel.
plan.
In
and
this
then,
plan.
And every 15 years, they increase the plan.
Well, I know. I think it was probably 2002. Gene Chandler was trying to buy some. One of the tree companies had a bunch of land up north, and
That was up in the Umbagog, or Pondicherry, which is U.S. Fish and Wildlife,
Right.
Silvio Conte.
they were trying to buy that at a good deal, quote unquote, with state and federal money. And I was on the way to the state. Now this is Gene Chandler's baby, so he was Speaker of the House, so everybody's going to vote for it. I was one of 17 people who voted against it. You know why?
Why?
Because at that point in time, between the federal and state government, they already owned 25% of the land mass in New Hampshire. If it owns 100%, that's called communism.
Well, that's what they're heading for, really, because you've not only got the Silvio Conte, the Umbagog, but you also have the Great Thicket, which they just came out with in January, which Manchester is part of.
Right.
And so they're going, they have focus areas in that, and it includes the entire states of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, most of Connecticut, a portion of Vermont and New
Yeah.
Hampshire,
So
all the
they're
way to the Hudson River.
so they're borrowing money from China to buy land in New Hampshire.
I think they're printing money.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody's loaning us money anymore.
I think they're just printing it.
because somebody told me a lot of this is collateral against the debt.
Well, I've heard that also. I don't know about that, but I have not heard that China is buying. I've heard they're selling. They're buying up everything real they can get their hands on, is what I've heard.
Right. Now, let's go back to your property. So, the federal government has already contacted you and said, "Hey, we want to."
Buy a postcard.
Buy a postcard, yeah,
Buy a
because it's not a
postcard.
big deal
Now,
or
you
anything.
understand
Right.
that the focus area really includes much bigger, an area bigger than what they send out postcards to.
No, so I know,
They-
but what I'm
because
I
they-
want to kind of get to the. So they sent you a postcard, and what does it say? Does it say, "Hey, we want your property"?
That your property is within the focus area, and they are going to be making a decision on it, and they're going to be holding hearings about it, and then they would be contacting the people to see about getting them to sell them their property.
And you know.
And the decision was supposed to be made in March. I have not heard which of their A, B, C, or D, but C was their preference.
Now, do you know from history whether or not they offer you fair market value? A,
They can, yes.
they can, do they?
I believe they do sometimes, yes. In
Okay.
fact, in the beginning, I think they're more than apt to, because they want people to say, oh, okay, that's a good deal.
Right.
Right.
And so it's only the holdouts that really get
Now, if they buy your,
shafted.
this is one of the things I was thinking about today before we did the show. If they buy your property, what do you call it? What do you call it when you have a property and you put a
Easement.
no, not an easement, a rider basically on the title, like a like could you put a rider on the title? Say, okay, I'll sell this to you, but if you ever sell this to anybody, it has to first go back to my descendants.
I doubt if the federal government
yeah, I
would
do too.
ever allow
Because
that.
haven't they been selling some of the land they've taken?
Well, I've heard they've been, I don't know for sure, but I have heard rumors that they are, because I haven't done the research on that aspect of it, they have been selling uranium and things like that to foreign companies.
Great.
So in other words, they take your property, and because they know something you don't, and they can turn around and sell it to Russia, which is actually the one who has been buying the most of those properties, and you have no say in it, and you just lost a fortune, and you didn't even know it.
Right, well, they wouldn't have allowed you
Right.
to do anything about it. They would never allow you to sell it because you would be destroying the property.
Yeah, because you'd be endangering the wild
Right, the
cockatoos.
wildlife, but
Right.
they can do whatever they want.
I think it's important to note that, in this scenario, Anne isn't the only one who loses out.
No, but I'm talking to
Yeah.
her specifically because she has firsthand experience. Because usually
Absolutely.
when we're on this show talking about out west with Jerry,
Oh, no.
this
Right.
is all kind of abstract.
It is
Right.
not abstract. It is here, it is now, it is the Lake Umbagog, it's the Silvio Conte, it's the Great Thicket,
WAPAC.
the Warpack.
Yep.
Now Congress has not given approval for this.
Oh,
Congress passed the
the
laws
original laws.
that created U.S. Fish and Wildlife's ability to declare certain areas as national wildlife refuges.
So now it's just up to the bureaucrats to carry
Exactly.
it out.
And they
basically, yeah.
fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund, we do, the taxpayers, to buy out our property.
Yeah.
And from a town's point of view, so the reason I'm so very interested in this is it's not just about Ann's property, but according to the plan, they would like to purchase 25% of my town. So that's a real concern to me as a taxpayer because
They're not going to pay taxes.
No, they're,
there will be
Right.
zero taxation. So what they do is they have a fund that they say, well, if Congress appropriates us the money, we will return to you in lieu of taxes up to 45% of what you would have got from this parcel of land in taxes.
Which
The
is-
reality, what we hear is somewhere around 21%.
well, not only that, they
If they pay
bulldoze down
anything.
the houses or they burn them down.
So it
And so
reduces.
therefore, you don't have that tax base.
Okay. Yeah.
And so pretty soon, your town doesn't have the taxes, fewer people have to pay a greater amount of the tax burden in order to maintain the town, and it meets critical mass, and you no longer can have a town.
So
Right.
I'm not going to be able to get rid of my ambulance, my fire trucks. All these things, those are still things that we will always have to have to pay for, but it's going to be paid for by a smaller number of people.
So
Right.
taxes go up and people end up not being able to afford them, so guess what they do? They sell out.
Right.
It's quite a racket.
It's a racket,
Yeah.
and it's not good because it's not good for the people. Without property rights, you become serfs.
Right.
It's like the serfdom and the feudal.
As mentioned, the Fish and Wildlife Service put out a publication here that indicates that in fiscal year 2012, refuge revenue sharing payments for the fund were 21% of the full payment level.
They don't
So
even
that's
make
money
full
that the
payments.
tons are supposed to be counting on that
Yeah.
their taxpayers are going to make up the difference on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people, I'm in contact with Robert Lord, who lives up on the Umbagog. And at first they thought it sounded like a good thing, what U.S. Fish and Wildlife was doing, but they have since become to hate it. And it's harassment, it's people who still own property within the refuge, who one woman who mowed her grass 6 inches beyond into the wildlife refuge was severely warned never to do that again. It's a tree falling from the refuge onto your property and you going and cutting it back on the property of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and being severely reprimanded. Never to do that again or you will be severely fined. The people up there dislike it immensely.
Wow.
You get the general sense, listening to testimony, that basically the Fish and Wildlife Service sees the people who are still there as a nuisance they'd like to be rid of.
Now, do we have legislation in the New Hampshire legislature to
Well, we do.
tell the federal government to go suck eggs?
Well, we have an 80-year-old bill on 80-year-old law on the books, RSA 121, and RSA 121 stipulates that no more than 2% of the
He can read. I can't.
no more than 2% of the state's land area can be taken over by the federal government, excluding the White Mountains,
Right.
White Mountain National Forest. In addition, it stipulates that the federal government can't take more than 5% of any town's tax base. These requirements, however,
Now,
have never been obeyed. That's been in existence for 80 years.
1935, it was voted into law by the legislature.
Yeah,
That's
but-
RSA
It's never
121.
been followed.
Right, but this is a no.
No, this is on the books right
Yes,
now.
but this is a New Hampshire.
This is New
RSA.
Hampshire law.
RSA 121.
Do they just argue that, well, federal law supersedes?
Yeah,
Well, the
the
Fish and
federal-
Wildlife
Is
we've
that
been
how
told the Fish and Wildlife's attitude is we don't have to obey your local laws.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
basically supremacy clause, and that's the end of the subject. And we've
Yeah.
asked them repeatedly.
No, I tried to get them. Oh, now I'm going to forget what year. I'd say 2009. They were trying to create a saltwater. The federal government told us we had to have a saltwater fishing license. All right,
Okay.
and it was Democrat controlled House, and I stood up on the House floor and says this is absolute BS. The federal government has no control over somebody fishing off a dock in Portsmouth. There's a 3-mile limit. Anything inside that 3 miles is New Hampshire property. They have no right. We have to fight this. We have to stop capitulating every time the federal government tells us to do something.
I agree. I agree, because otherwise it comes down to us losing more and more land. We'll never be able to have businesses in New Hampshire, because if you look at the magnitude of all of this, the land mass that is not included is a small section of New Hampshire.
Right.
So therefore, where are the businesses? Where are the homes for the future? Where are for our children and our grandchildren?
They don't want that.
And I'm telling you, if you look at like Wapak down around Peterborough, where they have outlawed picnicking
Really?
and jogging, you can hike, but you can't jog.
For real?
Can you imagine trying to open a new business in these limited areas that we may have left? I'm not making that up.
That's incredible. Wow.
Go to their website, look at their regulations.
No kidding.
Yeah, no
Jeez.
picnicking.
Wow.
You can eat, but you can't picnic.
You
Right.
can.
So we're debating what does that mean we can't sit down?
No, you can have sandwiches and you can sit down. You just can't lay out a blanket.
Oh, you think that's it?
That's
Yes,
no-
as soon
no
as
red
you
and
lay
white
out
checkered
that
blanket.
blanket, you're depriving the natural ant inhabitants from accessing your picnic basket.
Oh, okay.
So instead of 5%, we're talking about 25% of the town of Alstead.
Smart.
You'd make a good bureaucrat.
Thank
Talking
you.
about the town of Gilsum, we're talking about 53% of the town of Gilsum.
Yeah.
That's those. The numbers are
What's the avenue?
horrendous.
What's the because obviously this has to be attacked.
Yes.
Well, we've got some bills going through the legislature.
Okay.
House Bill 1147 will require that the Department of Resources and Economic Development keep a record of exactly how much land we have in the state that is owned by the federal government and exactly what the situation in each of the towns is to
5%
ensure that we stay below the 5%.
Right.
That's passed the House. That's on the way to the Senate. The Senate has passed a bill that will address a number of other things relating to the takings of these
RSA 121, the original law, its amendment to the original law that gives it some teeth and clarifies things a little more.
Yes, these are all amendments to 121. But the real kicker here is that we have to enforce 121. And of course, the
Absolutely.
town's option, even if we don't pass these amendments, would be to go to court.
And I have called on behalf of the town of Alstead. I've called the Attorney General. Still waiting on a call back. Called him back a couple times, talked to a couple different people in the office with the simple question of, do you intend to look at the Silvio Conte expansion under the auspices of 121? And no response whatsoever.
Also, the town, we put in a warrant article because in RSA 121, it allows the town to vote and have a vote of whether or not they want to have land within the town sold to the federal government under this RSA 121. And so we put in a warrant article that the town voted on in Alstead. And all it takes is a majority vote, and by a vote of 261 to 194, the town voted that they did not want the expansion of the Silvio Conte Wildlife Refuge in the town of Alstead. So the selectmen,
Yep. We then drafted a letter to DRED, just reinforcing that and asking that any conversations that should take place between the state and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, that we be involved in those conversations.
When you say dread, can you explain that one?
Please.
Department of Resources and
Management.
Economic Development.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're-
Economic development to try and take land and take it out of the marketplace and its development.
Destruction. Economic destruction.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yes, that's, that, and DRED has received our letter. I know that because I'm in communication with them. And they have already, I know, spoken with U.S. Fish and Wildlife down in Hadley, Mass, I believe, is where the place where they make the acquisitions. And so they've made them aware of it, and they've made them aware of the law. And so we're progressing. We're progressing along to try and get control of this, to try and preserve the state of New Hampshire for the citizens of New Hampshire, as well as the wildlife of New Hampshire. And it's going to be a process.
So
but
how can I find out if my property is on this list? That way I can find out if I should hold on to it because it's going to get valuable. Because if it's the only piece of land left in New Hampshire that people can buy or sell, I can make
Unless,
Yeah,
They probably want to.
Yeah.
They probably
Unless-
won't let you have access to it. So
yeah,
I don't know how much.
yeah, you have to get a
gotta work.
helicopter.
don't
You're gonna need a
forget,
helicopter,
they-
that's
they
right.
can
But then they'll
shut
freaking
down the
restrict the
roads.
airspace.
There you go.
And they also can charge you with terrorism, domestic terrorists for not
Well, I
selling.
think they've already charged me with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on the list. I tried to take Suter's house years ago.
Yes, I
Remember that? Yeah,
I
so
remember.
I'm pretty much on that list for a long time.
But we're trying to get the word out to the people in New Hampshire, and to go online and to look up all this information and to realize what's going on, and that it's not a good deal for the state, it's not a good deal for the towns, and it's not a good deal for the landowners, because the ones that remain are going to pay greater tax bills.
And also to remind people that we have a law on the books that these people should be complying with. The Fish and Wildlife should be complying with.
Right.
And they've apparently made it clear, even to DRED, that, yeah, So what?
Right.
Well, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
When Jerry DeLemus was on the show too, and we were talking about this before the show, I believe it was his last media appearance before the FBI grabbed him.
Right.
He was commenting that it's in the Constitution that the federal government is not to.
That is absolutely
Try to
correct.
take all the
But
land.
they have been ignoring the Constitution for a long time.
Yeah.
And the states need to say, you cannot ignore this Constitution. You have to obey it and obey the laws as set forth in the Constitution.
Yeah.
The state, that's why this is extremely important, because the state of New Hampshire is needed to finally stand up with other states. We want to encourage other states to do the same thing, to stand up and say, no more. Maine is being taken over. A huge part of this is Maine. Not
Yeah.
only that, they have the northern forests. They want to take over the entire northern forests in Maine. There are many states. They plan Vilsack in 2009.
What's that mean?
Vilsack is the Secretary of Agriculture.
Agriculture
Okay.
came to New Hampshire back in 2009, I believe it was. My husband and I went because I've been aware of this going on for many years. And they had a meeting at the Grapponi Center.
This is before they sent you that nice postcard?
Yes, they
Okay.
just sent that last September.
All right.
And and they were talking at that meeting that it was a huge, lot of NGOs were there saying they need more money, and there were a few of us, actual landowners, who said, no, we just have to be able to have the ability to utilize our land and sell timber harvests and to have agriculture. We don't need all our land bought up. But the plan, we were told at that meetings, was they wanted the northern forests, and they want that to go from Maine all the way across into New York, all federally owned.
Wow.
And they're
So that's
close to it
Pittsburgh and
already.
everything else.
They're already close to it with the Umbagog and now the Silvio Conte.
It's a big chunk.
That's
the-
all of northern New Hampshire gone.
Yeah.
And how the process will work is unchecked by folks like these, then it's going to come down to the public comments have already been made. Anybody who wanted to say their piece to the federal government has had their opportunity, according to the federal government. And now it'll all come down to the director of Fish and Wildlife for this area, one person, one bureaucrat, one unelected official, who will just decide based
Right.
on everything,
Right.
A, B, C, or D.
Now, I would recommend...
What's his name?
Her name,
Her.
Wendy, I'm trying to remember her last
I'm
name.
terrible
Yeah.
with remembering names. But you still have those of you, like you, in Manchester, Londonderry, Litchfield, Rollingsford, Dover, Oyster, Dover, Bellamy, focus areas. You and Hudson, part of Hudson is part of the Great Thicket. You can still comment until April 2nd, I believe it is. They've extended the comment period. So I would recommend the towns in those areas, or in any place within the Great Thicket, which is a huge area, to comment and tell them what they think.
Now, how many of these towns in the Great Thicket actually know what's going on yet?
Very few. I want to know what happened in our area?
Because I was
Yeah.
thinking of town like warrant articles and like put together town warrant articles in every single one of those towns.
Exactly.
Not because it will necessarily have a great effect as much as it would make people aware. This is what's
True.
going on.
Correct.
You have to start waking up, people, because the fundamental principle of our Constitution is the ability to own land.
Property
Makes the
rights.
difference
Property
between
rights
you
is
being-
everything. It's like
Yep.
John Lott. That was his whole thing.
Yeah.
Is if you can't work and earn money and buy property and build a house and own it yourself, and it's a man's home is his castle. If you can't do that, your economy dies.
Yes.
You become a serf.
Yeah.
That's a feudal serfdom system.
Yeah.
Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a select number of towns. If there's 20 towns impacted by Great Thicket or 50 or whatever it happens to be, maybe 4 or 5 of those will get an official notice.
Yeah, they don't even get
Like
notice.
Alstead, we were kind of lucky because we got the 2,000-page report delivered.
Oh, really?
And our office administrator goes, "What the heck is this? Why is the federal government?" So we
Yeah.
got a little bit of heads up, and then Ann quickly called. Thank you. But the rest of the towns, the other 15, 19 towns that
Right.
that are
Well, some of them didn't even understand it. I went to Gilsum to talk to the selectmen, and they said, "We got a postcard?" And the woman who the town clerk said, "Oh, yes, we did get a postcard. I didn't understand it." And in fact, she said, "I don't understand what's going on here because they even have, the maps include the tax maps. Your property, you find it on the map with the tax map."
Yeah.
And they had all of the tax map numbers wrong.
Really?
Yeah. So they did not understand at all what was going on. I talked to people who received the postcard who own property in the Ashwellet focus area that I'm in, and they threw it away because they didn't understand what it was all about.
And it's on a postcard, which I wonder if that's intentional,
Oh,
just
that's
psychologically.
gotta be.
You look at it,
Yeah.
oh, it's junk mail, throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But
didn't.
can you imagine a town getting, under the acquisition, 53% of Gilsum,
Yeah.
53% of your town, and they send you a postcard?
Yeah, that's incredible. We have a call. Grab it. You are. Hello. Welcome.
Hey, yeah. That woman's name is Wendy Weber.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendiweber.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm on the internet. I'm looking up. This is the first I've ever heard of this, and I'm on the internet and I'm looking at this. There's so many articles out there, but they want it. It's huge.
It
These
is.
people aren't just spouting, nonsense. It's huge.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
So I thank you for the information. I'll keep on doing some research.
What's your
Yes.
name?
Bye now.
What's his name?
Bye-bye.
His name's Bye-Bye?
I think so, yeah. It's a weird name, right?
That sounds like Steve.
It's hard for him to carry on a conversation with someone because
Yeah, 'cause everyone say, "Hey, bye-bye."
introduces
Yeah.
himself, and then,
Yeah.
you know.
You can't
that's
imagine
it.
that. It's got to be quite the burden.
Hopefully it's his last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. I think that sounds like Steve. That's the guy who called.
Oh, yes, I think you're right. He hasn't called in a long time. I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Well, I think you're going to find that when the first lawsuit is filed, everybody's attention will be.
Yeah, but the
firmly
first
focused.
lawsuit, that's the problem is when you're calling
we
who?
have a call. Maybe it's him clarifying his name. Hi, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Who's on the line?
Bob Lord.
Oh,
Bob.
I'm watching a live streaming where they're talking about the Umbagog and the Silvo
He's
Conti
a-
Refuge,
he's an arrow.
Yes.
the land grab.
Yeah.
Am I on the right show?
Yes,
You're all
you
right
are.
place.
You are.
Hi, Bob. It's Ann.
Hi. I'm the guy who's in the middle of the Umbagog. I've been fighting that refuge now for 7 years. I had a nationwide petition against against the feds taking our land, and nothing ever happened. It's been an uphill battle all the way. The law, that RSA 121, I took that to a meeting, and the feds said that we're not going to follow that because we're the federal government. We don't have to follow it.
right.
If people would come up here, we could sit you down for probably 3 or 4 hours. We've got literally 5 or 6 cardboard boxes of actual documented wrongdoing that's happened at the refuge.
Wow.
They're going to burn your houses down. And when you take a look at a piece of property, if you take the house off the property, all you've got is the land. The only thing that they will pay in lieu of taxes on, it's only 21%, is just on the land, because they managed to get rid of the house.
Right.
The house is gone. Errol, right now, 1/3 of our town is owned by the federal government, over 1/3. We're 37,000 acres. They own over 13,000, almost 14,000 acres.
How long has that been the case?
Their plan for Errol is going to be right around 76,000 acres with with a CCP that's currently going right now.
Yeah, but how long?
7 more years.
The acres?
We're going to ban snow machining on the refuge. The head
Wow.
of the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association at that time, his name was Charlie Kurtz, told Paul Casey, he said, you'll have an injunction on your desk tomorrow morning. And they didn't want to see that happen because that would mean that would slow them down on purchasing land. So they allowed existing snow machine trails. But as they were saying, with the next CCP, there'll probably be no snow machine trails. So, and this is what I tell people in southern New Hampshire: you can kiss your snow machining up here goodbye. It's
Wow.
going to be gone. They do not allow ATV trails at all. None.
Okay.
And when we went to Rangeley, they were going to start another refuge over in Rangeley that was going to connect with the Umbagog.
Yeah.
And that refuge was going to be about 257,000 acres when they're done with it. We went over there with all our information. They had absolutely lied to the people. They told them they were going to have bear hunting on that refuge, not true. They told them they were going to have ATV trails, not true. And there was a multimillionaire who was going to provide seed money for the first 25,000 acres. And he pulled his money because one of the stipulations he had was the fact that in order to be able to put the money into it, it had to be approved by a majority of the people in the town.
Wow.
And when we were done, nobody approved of it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. This is going to take out all of Coos County, guaranteed, and most of New Hampshire. I mean, this is, I don't know what it is. It's as sinister as anything. And we fought, for example, we were not allowed to pick berries on the refuge.
Wow.
So we fought that.
No blueberries.
And the manager called me up and he says, I want you to know that you can pick blueberries on the refuge. And I said, really? I says, well, that's good, you know. And he says, yeah, he says, 1 quart per family per year.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very generous.
And we've got video
Wow.
of their head of law enforcement. You're not allowed to pick cranberries, but we got video of their head of law enforcement picking cranberries on the refuge.
Well, that's different. You know, that's just
Yeah, they're different.
They're
They're
different.
very special. They're extremely special.
wow. Hey, thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah,
Thanks,
bye.
Bob.
Well, we've got to wrap this up. We got, according to that, 5 minutes. Is that usually right? It's usually
It's
close.
fast by a
It's a little
minute.
bit fast by a minute, but wow.
So we want to get the word out. People don't know this. They don't
No,
know
I didn't.
what's
I didn't
going
realize the extent of it. I mean, I know only in the last few days because you sent me all that stuff, and I saw you guys up at the State House. But judging by the quantity of people who are at the State House, it is obvious people don't know about it.
on. Right.
Because if people thought that their land was going to be scoffed up by the federal government, only to be possibly sold off later on to their political friends, which is probably what will happen.
Well, the day we were there for that rally, there were people there from the Sierra Club, and they came out and were around, and they didn't know this was going on. And one woman who has property in the Connecticut River watershed was shocked and was appalled when she found out about it.
Wow. Yeah, I would think just call on hold. I don't think we can take it, can we?
You want to grab it?
Took it, go ahead.
All right. Real quick. Hey, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Who's on the line? Hello?
Hello, statue.
Yeah, it's me again. My name is Larry.
Oh, hi,
I'm
Larry.
the person that called up previously to
Yeah.
talk about. I gave you that woman's name,
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wendy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to correct that. I didn't mean to hang up on you guys, but usually what happens is I can't listen to the show.
Yeah. You have to shut the show off while you're listening.
Yeah, it's because we're on a delay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
anyway, it's a great show tonight. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's taking all the New England states.
Yep.
They're even doing things down in Massachusetts in the
Oh, yeah.
Mashpee area.
And
Yeah.
And they're-
Connecticut.
Right here on the internet, they're going to be buying people's land.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we gotta, Larry, we gotta let you go because we actually have to wrap up. But thank you for calling back. Appreciate it.
Okay, very good.
All
Great
right.
show tonight, guys.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Well, the way you said it, a great show tonight. It's like
I know. I think there's become a mixed message there.
Yeah, I know,
Damning with faint praise.
I know. I was
Yes.
kind of a little offended again.
Well, Gary, if you
Yes,
want to
dear.
have us back at a later date, we'd be glad to come.
We'll have to have you back because this
Absolutely.
this is too important. The thing is this is all recorded. My best buddy Matt here puts this online, so you can
Excellent.
people within a few
Excellent.
days. You can go on Facebook on Rock Paper Hand Grenades. This will be uploaded onto Facebook, and you can copy it and paste it.
Send it out to people.
Send
Yep.
it out to
Send
people.
it out to your
Spread
friends.
But I think the next
Sure.
course of action would be to try to start getting petition to warrant articles in as many towns
Exactly.
as you can, because that's pretty easy to do with 25 signatures.
Yep.
And once people start seeing this on the ballot, they're going to start asking
What
questions.
we did was we used our big map, and my husband stood out for 12 hours at the polls, showing people who had no idea this was going on in our town.
Right.
Showing them about it and explaining what it meant and all, and that's why we had the vote we did.
Why it passed.
Hey, we got to wrap up.
Gotta go.
Thank you very much, folks.
Yes,
Thank you.
And keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.